We are live.
What's up, dude?
How's it going?
Pretty good. It's Friday night. I'm excited for the weekend. It's fucking crazy that it's 1 week until Christmas, but this year's just
That is
completely flown
wild to think
by.
about. That is crazy. Is it really a weekend?
It's
Damn.
literally 1 week from today. Yeah. For anybody who's tuning in for the first time, this is Vanguard live stream. I'm Zach.
I'm Gavin, and I still thought it was like Halloween.
Yeah, geez, right? We do have a shout out to our patrons, people who are supporting us on Patreon. If we want to pull that up.
Yeah, you guys can join the patron community by visiting patreon.com/the Vanguard channel if you want to support a small independent leftist media company or YouTube channel, whatever you want to call us. There's 3 categories here. You can join for as low as $1 a month or for as much as $10 a month. And we actually have a patron tonight who's one of our VIP Vanguardian patrons who will be joining us live on air tonight to discuss one of his favorite subjects. So we're really excited to do that. And again, if you want to have the same kind of privileges, you can join for $10 a month. Link is in the description. But yeah, with that out of the way, we do have some news stories to talk about tonight, including a pretty breaking news story. I was just going through my YouTube actually when I saw this clip posted on the Hill, and I figured it would be worth polling to talk about. Obviously, AOC has been on everyone's minds lately, and this is not directly related to the whole, stimulus or Pelosi vote no to force the vote drama. However, I did think it was interesting and worth polling because it did have a direct relation to Nancy Pelosi and, like I said, AOC, who's been kind of at the center of this drama. Ocasio-Cortez has been passed over for Kathleen Rice on Energy and Commerce Committee. She was apparently hoping to receive this committee position. And then, like I said, The Hill actually just posted this video of AOC responding. So I'll play this and then we can just, talk about it a little bit.
Can we get subtitles? Because I can't hear.
Let's see if we can get subtitles. It is really quiet.
Let me try turning up my headphones all the way.
Can you hear it at all?
She's talking about remarks that are being made, but no, I can't hear anything.
She's basically saying that she's disappointed. And yeah, sorry about that, guys. The audio seems to be really bad, and especially with her wearing a mask, it's probably not very legible to you guys. But she's essentially saying that she's disappointed. You can tell she's kind of looks a little bit beleaguered here, if you ask me. I mean, obviously, regardless of this, she's also, of course, been at the center of this drama, like I mentioned. But this is just, it's kind of like, well, the person you're, arguably protecting, Nancy Pelosi, and who you're going to vote for, has passed on you for this committee position, Energy and Commerce Committee. I think that would be a pretty good home for AOC if she's going to, be the head of some committee in the House. That seems like up her alley. So again, it's like, why are you protecting Nancy Pelosi?
Well, I think the idea was likely, and this is just a shot in the dark. Obviously, we're not inside AOC's brain, but I imagine that she was considering this potential appointment to this committee when she was not challenging Nancy Pelosi. I think when she implied that there were things going on in the background regarding certain committee positions, certain things that they would be able to push for, obviously this is positioning her in a good place as far as a Green New Deal in energy and infrastructure project is concerned. So I think that that's where her line of thinking was coming along. If you read the tweets, there was a lot of vague references to committee positions and the appointment of the importance of strategy, obviously referring to her response to Jimmy Dore and what's the name of the running back that was calling her out to? Justin
Jackson, I think.
Jackson, yeah. Either way, this just kind of, this is what was going on. This is why you weren't. I mean, to me, both as like a pundit, analyst, or just as like a person, right? Like, I think it's pretty obvious. Oh, okay, this is kind of like what you were trying to set yourself up for. Obviously, any rational person's going to understand that Nancy Pelosi is not going to give AOC any fucking power at any point, and she's going to continue to manipulate her and chop her. Like, this was obvious, of course. This is what's going to happen. Get AOC to placate Nancy Pelosi, and then and Nancy Pelosi screws AOC. That's the squad or any kind of progressive. That's how the whole Democratic Party works, right? So trying to play by their broken, busted fucking rules is obviously going to set you up for failure. So, I mean, I'm not surprised. This does kind of fill in some context for why AOC was kind of behaving and speaking the way that she was. This was her strategy. This was her grand plan, and why we couldn't get a floor vote on Medicare for all. Fucking ridiculous and bad strategy. But I guess this is where she was thinking, or like where her head was.
Yeah. And it's also it's kind of ironic and a little bit, I guess, funny that, this just proves that Nancy Pelosi is not at all afraid of AOC, because if she was afraid of AOC, then she might think twice about not giving her this, committee appointment, because now AOC could, turn around and with the vendetta, vote against her. This might fuel AOC to maybe change her tune on the whole voting yes on Pelosi thing. But the fact that, Pelosi decided to pass on her anyway and give it to a different Representative Rice, just shows me that she doesn't actually believe AOC has the teeth to, go forward now and kind of takes that next step and to actually voice her dissent.
She's not going to retaliate at all.
Exactly, which is what I would, I would hope she would do. Once again, being slapped in the face, someone like me, turns around and would turn that energy into something productive for the movement. But it looks like this is just going to be another slap in the face with no recourse for the progressive left.
Well, I mean, look at her demeanor in that video, that clip that you saw. So obviously we couldn't hear what she was saying. She was so quiet. So it wasn't like she was fucking screaming with outrage, right? Like, she looks like she's disappointed and dejected and like, oh my gosh, like this is just another thing. Like,
Yeah.
Like, okay, like, I mean, maybe, like I said, I can't hear anything that she's going. I'm showing just off body language. So she picks up towards the end right there. Like, but it doesn't look like she's about to go, like, fucking score Nancy Pelosi. She's not about to go cost Nancy Pelosi any political points. Obviously, she's going to continue to vote for her for the speaker position, and she's going to talk about how, like, wow, it really takes a lot of knowledge about, the wonkery and everything, and Nancy Pelosi really, like, she does know exactly how to handle the annals of Congress in a way that, like, nobody else does. So it's just like, that's our mama bear. And it's like, wait, what? Like, you just got fucked by this woman and you're going to still vote for her, and also your whole movement just got fucked by this woman? Like, what? You're not, like, I don't know. Yep. It's kind of more of the same when it comes to AOC, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. Again, sorry about that audio, guys. I thought you might be able to hear that. But again, she didn't really say anything too exciting. It was mostly just like, well, I got so, unfortunate. Obviously, AOC would have been, anyone that supports the Green New Deal and understands the necessity of it should be in that spot. And if I were AOC, I'd be out there calling out the corruption of the Democratic Party and being like, of course I didn't get the spot because, they're paid by the oil companies and they're paid by the fossil fuel lobbyists. And, that's the obvious response to me. But AOC, like I said, doesn't really quite have the teeth seemingly to pull off that kind of response. Another story that I did pull that I wanted to talk about was, well, we're hearing a lot about the vaccine, right? It's apparently done. It's apparently all ready to go is what I've heard, at least. There's varying reports on that. And some people think they might just be kind of trying to boost their stocks or something shady like that. But one of my favorite people and someone who's, notorious for his distrust of the United States government actually weighed in on this, Mr. Jesse Ventura, the former governor of Minnesota. And I just thought he had an interesting take on it, again, especially as someone who's usually pretty critical or suspicious of the government. Someone that definitely dabbles in conspiracies a lot. And I mean, he had an entire TV show called Conspiracy Theory. And of course, we've seen a whole, wave of new conspiracy theories revolving around this vaccine. People, obviously we had the whole anti-vax movement that was, bubbling under the surface of society for years. And now we have this vaccine that the government is trying to get everyone to take. So of course, the natural conclusion of all those anti-vaxxers is that this is the big thing that the government wants to force everyone on. And it's the logical extent of all of these ridiculous conspiracies. Needless to say, I was interested to see Mr. Ventura's take because, as I said, he has dabbled in conspiracies himself. And I was like,
you weren't sure which way he would fall.
Yeah. But needless to say, I found this response interesting. And also, it made me definitely feel good.
Once they're elected. And I got a great idea. I heard this the other day. I don't remember where. This would be a stimulus package, and it would also fight the COVID pandemic that we're dealing with right now. Why don't they pay people $1,000 to $1,200 when they get the vaccine? Hand them a check for $1,000. That way, everybody will get the vaccine. You'll get rid of the pandemic by using the vaccine, and people will get a stimulus package for getting the vaccine. It seems you could conquer two things with one stone on that, doesn't it? So that's my position on it. And you notice here, I'll give you a good transition, Brigitte. We don't have no problem spending money on war, do we?
So definitely an interesting opinion. I just wanted to hear your opinion, Zach. What do you think of that? Because I know it's been slightly controversial, the whole pay people to take the vaccine stance.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, you do have to have a couple of considerations when you talk about all these things. I want everybody to take the vaccine who's going to get it, right? But it's also you have to I guess if I'm playing devil's advocate in this, because on the surface, I agree with Jesse Ventura, right? This makes sense. This seems like a great additional stimulus on top of, obviously that we've talked about how the government has just fucked this up dramatically. So from where we are now, let's assume that people only get this $600 that's being talked about. They're going to desperately need another $1,200. I think that this makes a great amount of sense. I think obviously you have to have a couple of backdoor options for people who can't get vaccinated. They shouldn't get fucked out of $1,200 just because maybe they have some sort of mental or I said mental, I meant biological issue where they physically can't get vaccinated. But also, if I'm to understand correctly, there are people who are extremely deeply religious and practice their whole lives and refuse to get any kind of medication or so I don't want to just group everybody that's not getting or reluctant to get the vaccine into this group of conspiratorial conspiracy theorists. That being said, I think that for the overwhelming majority of the population, this kind of stimulus makes sense, right? Because there are a lot of people who are going to set aside their the inconvenience that going to get a vaccine is, because I think for a lot of people the vaccine is just going to be a straight up inconvenience. Gavin, you want a vaccine, but how much are you looking forward to going and waiting in line for 3 hours? A bunch around a bunch of other people. It just sounds like something that a lot of people aren't going to want to do, especially because so many people, and I don't know what kind of a societal impact this will have, but so many people over this time period have gotten so accustomed to never leaving their house, right? Think about how little you leave your apartment, basically only for necessities, right? And at that point, when I think about leaving my apartment, I'm really reluctant to. So I think that there does need to be a catalyst to encourage people to get vaccinated. And I think that $1,000, $1,200, whatever it is a great, a way of bringing that about, a way of encouraging people. And I don't have a ton of super big ethical qualms with it. Oh, you shouldn't pay people to get this. This is just encouraging people to put their safety first. Mike Pence already got this on television. His wife already got it on television. Our former president or Donald Trump, whatever you want to call him, he's fucking crazy. So it makes sense that he's refusing to fucking get it until his medical team determines that it's necessary. Or whatever the fuck, because that's part of his shtick now. But I think it's pretty much determined that as far as the medical community is concerned, this is a safe drug. So I don't think it's they're just trying to offshore it onto poor people who are desperate to stimulus as a way of trying it out, which I think is a disingenuous way of criticizing an argument like this.
Yeah, and I think that this. I know that some people have weird. We shouldn't pay people to take this for reasons X, Y, and Z, and I have yet to really hear one that I really find that compelling. I just don't. I think that not only would it obviously be a great stimulus to the people that truly, truly need that money, that goes without saying, but also just when you take your average Joe or Jane, people that may not be desperate for money, but it would be a good incentive to get them off their couch and to get that vaccine, like you said, which really is, the number one way to end this, hellscape of a fucking pandemic that we find ourselves.
Or maybe $1,000 the first time you go get it, and the $1,000 the second time you go get it.
Yeah, or that. If it ends up being a situation where you need to go again, then absolutely. There has to be
the way that it is right now. Is everybody has to get 2 doses of the vaccine for it to be effective.
And again, they always say well, we don't pay people to give blood because it's supposed to be considered a sacrifice. You're doing it on your own accord. It's not you're just being bribed for your fucking bodily fluids or whatever. But in my opinion, on this, when it comes to this, who fucking cares what the optics are?
They also let you sell your plasma. I've done it a million times when I was broke.
Yeah, and also it's this is just, it's for the public. We need to do this. And also, you mentioned like religious people. In my opinion, those are even fucking more dangerous than the conspiracy theorists. Like they're the ultimate conspiracy theorists because they're the ones that are fucking, putting their stupid like fucking archaic beliefs.
I don't think there's anything wrong with being a devoutly religious person that lives in your own community and worships your own kind of shit, doesn't want to fucking take any medication and live completely on your own with the earth. I don't think there's anything
yes, vaccine, no. Medication. I mean, if you want to go live in the middle of the jungle in a hut and be a hermit, then sure. But if you're going to take part in society in a modern civilization, then fuck no.
Well, yeah, sure. That's different, I guess. Yeah, I understand. I mean, I don't know. Like if you live remotely and you want to live by yourself, like I don't have an ethical qualm with that. Like believe whatever you want. But yeah, I do understand it becomes a problem if you want to send your kid to like a public school. Yeah, then it becomes an issue.
Or literally take part in society in any public way. I mean, again, if you want to go be a hermit, then feel free. I mean, here, Jesse Ventura, he lives 6 months out of the year off the grid in Baja, Mexico. So, I mean, I'm certainly for that and certainly for, living a less capitalistic life or whatever. But if you're going to be sending your kids to school or taking part in public, then you do have in my opinion, an obligation to be part of the, societal effort to,
Well, yeah, for sure. If you're going to be participate. Yeah, I understand what point you're making.
Yeah. But, anyway, this is optimistic for me because again, a lot of people have been talking about how this vaccine has been really rushed and how it's just, like again, living in a capitalist society, it's a little bit sketchy when, we're tasking these capitalist for-profit companies with coming up with a vaccine as quick as possible. So I was, I guess, just happy to see, again, Mr. Jesse Ventura, someone who I've been a longtime fan of, come out and just be like, fuck, I'm not, express no reservations about it and just be like, not only will I take it, but I think the government should be literally paying people $1,000 a month to do so. I don't really see any issue with that. I'll be interested to see how the conversation develops. And because I know there is a lot of public mistrust in the vaccination. And again, there's all these like Facebook groups and shit that have just been pumping out this anti-vax propaganda for years and years. And there's a lot of people that are, bought into it. All these, I guess, wine moms and just, poorly educated people that don't really have anything else going on in there. I mean, I don't want to like judge people. Obviously, if people are very susceptible to misinformation and, lack of education and all that stuff. So it's no one's fault. I'm not trying to make fun of anyone, but it is true that there's a large population and a growing population that goes increasingly ignored. I think people that do, have these beliefs about vaccines and stuff like that.
So I think it's the natural result of decades of intentionally sowing doubt and portraying the government as incompetent, right? Like that's the whole theme of America for the past 4 decades, right? Is portray the government as utterly incompetent and then incapable of nothing. So then it's like only natural that you would defund them because any money that goes to the government is a waste because they're naturally going to fuck it up. And then that's just kind of, the conclusion, right? Oh, of course the government's going to make a poison vaccine. The government can't do anything, or it like at best the government can't do anything. At worst, they're malicious actors, right? Like that's the other side. It's like a lot of people, just straight up think the government is a malicious actor when, especially when it comes to things like vaccinations. That's a lot of where the doubt comes. Speaking on the topic of the needed stimulus, though, there was a Matt Taibbi piece that came out. I want to say it was maybe like a couple days ago.
One second, I did just want to say real quick before you get started on there, shout out to Michael Hoschill in the chat, my good friend and old roommate. Thanks for tuning in, Michael. Appreciate it. Also, I saw you tweeting about getting a PragerU roast channel off the ground. Super excited if you end up doing that. That's the kind of content we need more of on YouTube. So again, thanks for tuning in, Michael. Glad to see you in the comments. And yeah, Jesse Ventura is a fucking badass. But what was that, Zach? Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no. Anyway, I put a link in the doc for this a Matt Taibbi piece. Essentially, the headline is "Amazing Hypocrisy: Democrats Make a Wreck of COVID-19 Relief Negotiations." And he just makes Matt Taibbi just puts up a really good piece where he's essentially walking everyone through the process of the Democratic Party like negotiating against themselves at every turn. So everybody knows that the Democrats they passed the HEROES Act. What was it, like back in May, right? Essentially like it was like over $3 trillion of stimulus and aid for state and local governments, which if anybody remembers, Nancy Pelosi chewed Wolf Blitzer the fuck out over. Remember when what was it, Trump and Steve Mnuchin, they had this they had a negotiated bill that they were going to send to the Senate and have the Republicans vote on it. It was like $1.5 trillion or something like that. It had $1,200 in it, and like a fat amount of money for let me see if I can the HEALS Act, a $1 trillion deal. The bill included another round of $1,200 relief checks And now the Democrats have essentially negotiated themselves down to getting $160 billion in state and local aid, which was what they were basically holding up the entire stimulus check argument about for just weeks ago. It's totally ridiculous. It's like 7 times less than the 1.1 trillion they asked for in the HEROES Act, and about half of the $300 billion that Mnuchin offered in October, which Nancy Pelosi rejected as sadly inaccurate. So it's just like, obviously it was all a show, right? When they were holding up the stimulus checks and they were talking about how they couldn't in good conscience like pass a bill that didn't give like more than like $1 trillion to state and local governments. They were, she was bursting out at anybody who dared challenge her on any news network. Even Wolf Blitzer, who's been, a cheerleader of the Democratic Party his entire life, never dared challenge the establishment when he mildly suggested that they maybe give aid to the desperate millions of Americans in the midst of a pandemic. She lost her fucking mind. And now there's a separate bill that literally the bill that has the $160 billion that's going to go to state and local government. It's literally a separate bill. They can vote on that $160 billion separately from the $748 billion. So they're not even guaranteeing that paltry $160 billion is going to get to the state and local government, which was what they held up the entire supposedly what they held up the entire negotiation process for. We all know what Nancy Pelosi really held up the negotiation process for. It was because she thought she was burning Trump, and instead the Democrats just lost every down ballot race that fucking possibly could have gone swing.
Yeah, this is pretty ridiculous. I don't really know what to say about this other than just, a complete failure. Joe Manchin is, basically tried to sabotage the Bernie and Holly collaboration to get the money.
Yeah, they put Joe Manchin and Warner from as the two guys that were going to be discussed on that we're going to be negotiating on behalf of the entire Democratic Party. These two might as well be fucking Republicans.
Yeah, so it's just pretty, crazy. And like it says here, the Democrats have done the worst negotiating in modern history because, now that the presidential election is over, they don't really have much of a reason to give a shit or actually do their jobs. They're just there to do nothing, essentially. Obviously not that the Republicans are
fundraise better.
And fundraise. But yeah, check out this Matt Taibbi piece, guys, if you want to read more about this. Pretty fucking crazy.
Yeah, pretty disgusting. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, one thing else I want to talk about was, have you heard of Nick Fuentes?
No.
Well, he's I guess one of these new personalities on the right. Quite a firebrand, I guess you could call him, on the alt-right. I guess you could. I don't know if people still use that terminology, but
the new right.
Yeah, the new right, whatever you want to call it. Nick Fuentes is really creating quite a name for himself recently. He's been in the right-wing spheres for a while now, but his real new claim to fame is that he's out here. These dumbass fucking million MAGA marches, as they call them, in which there's never actually even close to 1 million people, by the way. But yeah, he's out here basically taking the bold stance. And this is even a stance that I have to be like, wow, credit for taking the fucking bold stance. Like I said, he's literally telling his supporters basically to not vote, in the Georgia elections and to destroy the GOP. This is how pissed off he is. So take a listen to this and we can discuss. And also I have another clip of him where he actually kind of explains what he means by this. So again, we can make fun of it and talk about it.
And the first million MAGA march, we promised that if the GOP would not do everything in their power to keep Trump in office, then we would destroy the GOP. And as we gather here in Washington, D.C. for a second million MAGA march, we're done making promises. It has to happen now. We are going to destroy the GOP.
So yeah, there's a crowd of like angry white boys that are screaming.
Dude, that's 1 million people. That's so like that looks like the crowd at a Smash Mouth concert.
Yeah, and a lot of Republicans have been freaking out about this, because obviously this dude has a platform. He's out here talking about destroying the GOP, and they're like, yo, can you wait until this, Georgia race is done? We're trying to win this motherfucking seats. But here he is actually, describing a little bit about what he means. And I think it's interesting, not just to make fun of this, because it's definitely easy to do that, but it's also, I think, a little bit interesting just to think about the parallels that all are going on here, because here we have, for completely stupid and dumb reasons, basically that they're not accepting the reality of the election. Nick and his crew of MAGA boys are essentially advocating that they don't, stick with the party. And that's something that we talk about a lot on our show, just on the other side, and for much more real and legitimate reasons that aren't, based in conspiracy theories. They're actually, rooted in the need to help the proletariat and, dismantle our oppressive system of elite capitalism. But it's interesting to see, the fury here and the fact that these people truly seem to believe this so much that they are actually willing to leave the Republican Party for Trump.
To these different states, look at every senator, every House Republican that did not support the president, that did not do everything in their power to keep him in office. And they have to have a real primary challenge in 2022, 2024, and 2026. Because this has been happening for decades now, that we Republicans, we, the real base of the party, we, the real people of the country, we vote for Republicans to do conservative things on the economy, on foreign policy, on trade, on immigration. And time and again, they go to Washington, D.C., and they give us nothing in return. And you've seen this for the past couple of weeks alone from Senate Republicans and House Republicans, even as they make the case that we should give them another 2 years in control of the Senate with the Senate runoff in Georgia. And I am of the belief that we should not do that. I'm of the belief that the first blow that we have to strike against the Republican Party is withholding our votes in Georgia, withholding our votes.
It is pretty funny though that these people, they didn't get pissed about when Trump didn't actually follow through on his populist agenda and do pretty much anything he said he was going to do. They only get pissed, or 4 years later, again, after not fulfilling any of his agenda, then he loses an election. So it's like,
if you hard-hitting news that InfoWars brings us, Gavin.
But again, it's like, because clearly they're pissed here, but it's like, if Trump wasn't even going to do what he said he was going to do in the first place, then does it really matter if he's not in the White House or not? Like, it's not like he actually ended the wars or did any of the populist shit that he said he was going to. And it's not like he really even delivered that much of a conservative. Besides the courts, I guess he filled the fucking courts and all that.
Ben Shapiro put on an entire video talking about how if you're a conservative, you should be happy with Trump because he did all the conservative things. Like, I don't know. I mean,
bro, it looks like Alex Jones is on fire behind him. Look at that.
Yeah, dude, it's Christmas themed InfoWars. That's a hilarious studio, by the way. Like he really wants to be on Fox News, but he never will.
But just look at that fire behind. It looks like he's literally the kindling in the fucking, like, in the Christmas turkey. It looks like what I'm saying? But definitely a funny, clip that I thought was worth playing.
Yeah, and we can delve into it a little more. We don't have to plow over it. I think there is a real strategy conversation to be had here, and I think that it's important to raise it, right? This is another clear example of the right being able to exercise the power that their base has and the left never deciding to, right? So this is a dude who says, I don't give a fuck. We're not voting for you because you don't do what we wanted. And obviously the things that he wants are deplorable and not anything that I would ask for, and really misguided. And the fact that he wants to keep Donald Trump in office to do none of those things is obviously, his broken logic, obviously all across the board. But the one thing that the right wing always understands that the left never does, and it's like the primary thing that can be learned from the right, is how to exercise and wield your power, right? Exercise and wield the power of a voting bloc. Right now, they understand that Mitch McConnell desperately needs to maintain control of the Senate. Otherwise, his goose is cooked, right? And that's why we're seeing the conversation around stimulus checks right now, because I think a lot of it is the worry about the runoff in Georgia, and I think also for Josh Hawley, it's that he wants to be president someday. But I think that when it comes to the fact that he's willing to just be frank and say, why would we vote for these people in Georgia who didn't do what we said? That part is true, right? Why would we vote for these people who didn't do what they said they were going to do? And he said he's rejecting the Faustian bargain that's presented to every American voter, regardless of your ideology. And I think that they're, refusing, right, as many people have advocated on the left for a long time, is a real discussion that, everybody, there was a lot of disagreement on whether or not, 2020 was the time. I think we all have to come around and agree. It's like, okay, put that behind us. Now we can't repeat this mistake again. Okay, so Trump's gone, right? It's not Trump in the White House. Now it's time to start exercising our power too. And obviously in the Georgia race, it's better for the left if the Dems get the majority, because it's easier to push them and not have them have excuses. So in that case, I do hope that Ossoff and Warnock. Yeah, I was like, it's not Warnock, it's Warnock. Okay. Win their races, even though I personally find them to both be like rather contemptible politicians.
Yeah, Warnock seems a little bit better. He does seem a little bit more rooted in actual leftism than Ossoff. And it's true that the GOP got really unlucky because both of their candidates in those races, Perdue,
dude, they're two of the most corrupt politicians in America.
And not just that, but they're just bad politicians. Yeah. Like they're not charismatic. They don't, command any crowd.
Loeffler said she didn't think there should be any stimulus checks, or they asked her what the amount should be, and she refused to answer or something like that.
Yeah, they're the worst candidates ever to have to defend, especially as they're trying to pretend to be the working class multiracial party. They got these two rich ass corrupt ass white fucking old people. It's such a terrible look. And if the Democrats win, then they it'll be because of the terribleness of those two Republicans and the fact that they're not really cut from that same faux populist Trumpian cloth that is. It's
the same model whenever a I mean, okay, I don't know a ton about Warnock's policies. You said that he's a little better than Ossoff, who I am more familiar with his policies and much more rhetoric over any kind of substance in his policy. But I think that that's the only way for those kinds of politicians to win, is if they're just going up against a completely Roy Moore versus Doug Jones, right? It's kind of one of those. Anytime, as soon as they put up somebody mildly competent against Doug Jones, he was out of there. He got 2 years in the Senate out of Alabama, but he was running initially against a literal child molester. So of course, even the people of Alabama couldn't have voted for Roy Moore. And it's not like Doug Jones was some sort of progressive, but he was at least a Democrat in name. And he
progressive. But I thought that's why Biden was giving him the attorney general position, because he was a progressive to give outreach to the left flank.
Yeah, like he always does. It was the ultimate olive branch of Dougie Jones. But either way, it's the only way that they ever fucking win, right? If you're going to go against a GOP stale candidate, they have to be corrupt as shit if you're going to win as a neoliberal, right?
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what this little civil war on the Republican Party develops into. Are they actually serious about this? I wonder if this will actually cost the Republicans the Senate seats, because that will be fucking hilarious.
I hope it costs them one.
I hope. I mean, if it costs them one, then they still control the Senate. So I hope they cost them both, because then again, things like that House bill on legalizing cannabis can actually be brought up for a vote in the Senate. That's
true.
And also
decriminalizing cannabis.
Decriminalizing, yeah. And again, it will be nice. Again, I'm no Democrat. Fuck the Democratic Party, but it will be nice if the Democrats win those seats. It will be nice that Mitch McConnell won't be in that high of a position of power anymore, and to see him have to vote on all the
Chucky Blue Eyes.
Yeah, I guess not.
I don't know if he has blue eyes. That just seemed like a good nickname.
And that, I guess, wraps up that segment. By the way, guys, we do have a special guest joining us a little bit in just another couple minutes. We do have one more story we wanted to do before we get to that point. But yeah, we are going to be inviting one of our Vanguardian level patrons onto the stream tonight to have a discussion. So before we get to that, though, there was one more thing that we wanted to react to. And some people in our audience may be familiar with, or even fans of, the show Rising on the network The Hill. I know it's quite the controversial show in recent months, especially with the way that both Crystal and Saagar talked about the election coup, or Trump's coup, or whatever you want to call it. A lot of people took problem with their language on that issue, and I know that a lot of controversy has erupted. However, there's one take in particular from a recent episode by Saagar and Enjeti, the co-host of Crystal Ball, that Zach and I agreed was just so egregious that it could not go without comment, that it needed simply to be addressed. Again, this guy.
And to be fair, there has been a lot of good content that has come out of the Rising. So people that Gavin and I really do like. But as with anybody, we're never going to see eye to eye. And this was just something that we were like, this is ridiculous, so we wanted to comment on it.
Yeah, and again, I mean, as far as people on the right, Saagar and Enjeti is someone you can definitely find a lot more common ground with than your average right winger. He's definitely not just a complete fucking loon or whatever. It's not like he's just some insane person. But he definitely does have his share of cringy takes too. And again, sometimes they just simply need to be addressed. They need to be dismantled. And I think this one was just, again, I couldn't let it pass because it was so fucking stupid. This was from a segment from a couple weeks ago, I believe. And they're talking about an interesting idea. What if the popular vote itself had 30 electoral votes? So, if you lose the electoral college but win the popular vote, then by this suggestion, that could still put you over with an additional 30 votes. And
one might be prompted to ask, why not just get rid of the electoral college? But Gavin and I will get into that after we play this clip.
Well, that's funny you say that because that's pretty much Crystal Ball's first go-to response. And then it's Saagar's response to that idea that is so interesting. But yeah, we'll play this and we can react along the way.
That's it.
You're right.
Yeah.
Not going to happen. But look, if we're going to do anything, we should just make a popular vote. Like, I get the argument, the swing states, but like, why should Ohio and Florida be more special?
Wyoming.
Wyoming.
There's something to it.
There isn't anything to it.
She makes it great. She's like, why would we not, make them all just equal and everything? And then he's like, oh, there's something to it. About to launch into the dumbest ass conservative fucking talking point of all time.
Nothing to it.
Well, then
because the argument is always, then it ignores like the small states with small population. The states are already, Wyoming doesn't get any love because it's not a swing state. So it happens to be like this one random batch of states gets all the love, and they're the only ones that matter by and large to President Trump. It's insane.
Something matter is that they have some veto power within the system, which is, and I think that does matter, which is that Wyoming should have some power.
Okay, wait, pause right here.
They don't.
I would just like to point out that what he's revealed here is that he does not believe in the principle of democracy, one person, one vote. That's what Crystal Ball is arguing for right now. One person, one vote. So much for a populist position. Oh, we shouldn't have one person, one vote in this fucking country. I'm a populist, but let's subvert democracy. Huh? Anyway.
Yeah, it's truly revealing. And again, I don't understand how anyone could call himself a populist but not believe in the popular vote. It's like it should be the lowest bar to pass.
Oh, that's what I'm saying right now. But we're talking about the electoral college. Sure. So in the electoral college.
Oh, and then he also defends the idea of states like Wyoming having more of a say in the Senate than a state like California, which again is very antithetical to the idea of democracy, to the idea of one person, one vote. There's no reason that a state like Wyoming should have 140 times the say in the Senate that a state like California or New York, just because of the population density. It's completely fucking ridiculous, antiquated. It's also pretty fucking racist if you look at the racial demographics and the way that they,
I can't remember exactly which issue it is. I've got a bunch of Jacobins behind me. They did an amazing takedown of the Electoral College in Jacobin that I am like wanting to find really badly. But it was like they did the math, right? And it was like if you accelerate the population in all these states, and they did it, okay, if they're all these, and it shows you how much more of a percentage the vote matters if you cast it in one state versus another. And when you look at these maps where it's like, oh my gosh, this is where all of the power in an election is concentrated. It's just clearly designed as a way of making sure that real power and real power is never challenged democratically, right? Like it goes back to the old Chomsky point. Chomsky's always talking about how the founders of the country were always trying to reduce the threat of democracy. This is like one of their principal tools, right? This is one of the things that Alexander Hamilton, the guy that everybody fucking raves about now for I don't fucking know what reason, yeah, he was really into that along with Madison. So either way, read the Federalist Papers.
Yeah.
That you had, and we can argue about this another day, and I feel differently about that as well. But all you had is it ends up being just this random group of states that happens to be evenly divided. It's not like it benefits small or rural states. It doesn't benefit.
Yeah, and again, sorry to keep cutting in, guys, but she's so correct here. If the state of Wyoming, Saagar's trying to pretend like it has all, like, if it weren't for the Electoral College, then a state like Wyoming the candidates wouldn't even bother going there. They wouldn't even campaign there because it's obviously just gonna, it's not gonna go their way anyway. Well, and Crystal's pointing out that, yeah, but in the Electoral College, that happens anyway. Wyoming,
you don't go to Wyoming.
Yeah, it's a solidly red state. So if you're a Democratic candidate, unless you're Bernie Sanders who actually cares, you're not going to go there because it's, you just consider it lost. That's why the Democrats never campaign in Kentucky or West Virginia. They don't care about the states or the people because they just, assume that they're going to go red because that's how the Electoral College reduces those states' population to. It doesn't, and same, with California. If you're a Republican that lives in California, then there's literally no point in voting. just like how if you're a Democrat in Kansas, which Zach and I are, or Missouri, like there's no fucking point in voting for the president, obviously down ballot. There's no point in voting Democrat but even Republican. Like, I mean, you might as well vote, but it's not like it really is going to matter because the state's going to go red anyway. We know that. So it's just anti-democratic. It suppresses the vote for you know.
She actually won the governorship in Kansas.
Only because of her fucking shit opponent. Only because of Chris.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. But yeah, kind of going back to that argument that we had earlier. But anyway.
Or more urban states, it's a random mishmash. So I don't see why it should be that basically only these like 5 or 6 or 10 states actually matter in terms of the presidential vote. It's ridiculous and it's insane. It should just be the sure, it's not going to happen. I get you on that. It should just be the popular vote. It's the thing that makes the most sense. It's like very direct and obvious. The person who gets the most votes ends up being president of the United States. That's how it should work.
Yeah, I still think there's something to it.
What is to it?
Because what's to it is that you have this system, which, like he was talking about, you can't just ignore. Like at that point, especially with the economic trends, and actually people would be incentivized to just push people even more towards the coast, and then they would just campaign on that in terms of the popular vote margin. So as long as I think America's politicians should be forced, and anybody who wants to be president, to go and campaign in the majority of the country. And
but it's not the way the Electoral College is, though.
Well, it kind of is.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's really not. What the Electoral College does is it makes it just about these hands.
One of the big criticisms, not big criticisms, I don't have a problem with Rising. I don't want to frame it like we do. Like this is one segment where we're being like critical of one thing. But obviously, and Crystal Ball, I think is like a take machine that I really enjoy, right? Like she's always got, good contributions to things. But one of the things that I've kind of get annoyed with when I watch this show is I feel like she doesn't hold Saagar's feet to the fire enough. What I love about this clip is she's giving no fucking ground. He is completely dead wrong and she is not letting him. Like the only thing that I would push back on is he would be like, it's not going to happen. And I would be like, Saagar, we're going to make it happen because we've got to. But that's the only disagreement that I would have. I think that this is exactly what the show would be better served if they really debated and hashed this kind of shit out more.
And it's way more entertaining too. I mean, like they're both perfectly capable of having a non-scripted conversation, obviously not just reading off teleprompters like they're doing right now. They're actually having a real debate about this. And it's actually, how we get to the bottom of, questions like this and dispel idiotic notions like the fact that the Electoral College somehow benefits people that don't live on the coast. And without it, it would just be, the United States of California or whatever horse shit is peddled by these brain dead conservatives. So yeah, I totally agree that the show would be better if they actually just, hashed out their disagreements more often instead of just kind of like nodding along when one of them or when Saagar.
It seems like it's because they're still like kind of holding on to that more like corporate structure, right? So it's not like they can't do it like a 3-hour long podcast every day like you and I can. Like when you and I disagree about something, we'll talk for like an hour and a half and like we're going to hash it out. We're going to get to the bottom of why we fucking disagree, right? Yeah. Like I feel like with them, like every segment would turn into like an hour and a half because they disagree on fucking everything. It would be like if we did a show with like a libertarian, you know what I mean? Like, so I understand that dynamic. I just think that the substantive debate that she offers against his like new right populism would be really beneficial for people to hear and kind of like expose the hollowness of the new right. And I think it would also kind of put a break in the other critique that I have is sometimes that they do this as more like horseshoe framing, right? Like the new left and the new right, we all have the same goals. And I just do not think we have the same goals. And I think this is one of those reasons, or that's evidence right here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we have some more of the same goals than we do with some other groups of conservatives. But yeah, I agree. There's, it's not just that we are the same, just on two different sides of the horseshoe. I totally agree with that. And again, it's not that they have to debate every segment, but I do really enjoy seeing them get into it. Again, and as I mentioned earlier, as even though I vehemently disagree with Saagar Enjeti, I don't necessarily think he's coming from a place of bad faith.
Not at all.
I think he's a serious, I think he believes what he says, and then he's coming from a genuine place. I do think that these are his ideas. I just think that they need to be often, dismantled and debated. Yeah, challenged. And I mean, obviously, we would talk to someone like Saagar Enjeti on our podcast, just because there are areas of room to work. Obviously, there's some things that we agree on. And I don't think it's like
Bernie Sanders can find room to work with Josh Hawley, right? Like, and like there is reach over, right? And while and we can get into this in another segment. I don't want to derail it. I'm definitely really sure that this is just a cynical, or not like a move, but a calculated move by Josh Hawley to gain favor so that when he runs for president, he can be like, against my own party, I stood and said, I want to give you, like Josh Hawley has never done a populist thing in his life. It seems like a little uncharacteristic for him to just start putting like the rubber to hit the road unless there's not a little bit of a personal interest in there. But that's just me. That's just my personal take.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And obviously Saagar, Josh Hawley's probably his favorite fucking politician in the world. So
and the comment section points out anti-war on drugs. Those are also two great overlap. Although I don't know if Saagar is necessarily anti-war on drugs. He said some questionable things about the police during the George Floyd protest, in my view.
He also isn't even in favor of legalizing cannabis. So can you really call yourself anti-war on drugs when you're not in favor of legalizing the substance that is, directly the reason why so many people in this country are, locked away or on probation or, in, debt or all this stupid things for no reason. So in my opinion, that's one of his, most ridiculous takes of all time. And again, I don't really have any reason to listen out someone on the issue of criminal justice or drug war if they don't even understand why weed should be legalized. Like that's the lowest bar ever. That being said, let's finish this clip out.
Full of swing states. It's not like
Ohio, Florida,
nobody's campaigning in North Dakota or South Dakota or West Virginia or Kentucky. Like these states, a lot of them, some of the most struggling in the country, get completely ignored because they're not swing states.
The smallest population,
that to me is a failure. Everybody's vote should be equal. That seems like very logical.
Here's an example. Illinois, right? Illinois is getting no love in the middle of a popular vote election.
Right.
But they've got like 11, 12 votes. So somebody does have to.
No, but they
or Ohio.
But Illinois does not get loved in the electoral college system.
Yeah,
it's not a swing state. Nobody cares about Illinois. No one's running ads there. You know which way it's going to go. So ultimately, they don't matter either.
Ohio didn't used to be a swing state nowadays. That's only 18 votes, something like that. Or Indiana's like 12.
It's like, even if what he was saying was true, which it's not, I just can't imagine being.
I think like how Ohio isn't really a swing state either. Like Obama got it twice, but after that it went back to be now it's
again, even if what he was saying was true, which it's not, I just can't imagine coming out against one person, one vote in a country that, prides itself on being a democracy. Like, what is this? This is like, it's so anti-American. Like, I just don't understand. I mean, I guess it's not anti-American because America never has had a popular vote.
No, America, subjugating the vote is American. God damn it, he's a patriot.
But it's just like, it's so nonchalant too. It's like, this is just such an obvious position for people to have, I think. I mean, I've grown to believe that it's such an obvious position that to hear someone challenge it and on such flimsy terms and, with such confidence, I'm like, what do you mean? Like, how can you just buy into this kind of framing? Like, I don't understand. It has to be one of those things where it's just like, when you're on the conservative side, you probably hear people defend the electoral college all the time. So it just kind of becomes like, part of your thinking. You don't really think too hard about it. But
one of those things that like my little brother hit me with, and he was like, no, we need the electoral college. And within like 30 minutes, I'd explained to him that this was fucking broken and wrong. And he's like, I don't know. There was this guy and he was and it's like, people convince people of shit. And I mean, obviously, like, I don't want to demean Saagar. Like, obviously he's a capable thinker, but I don't understand how he fucking draws these conclusions.
No. And yeah, guys. So, we probably won't play the rest of this, but again, this is just such a dumb take. I don't understand how anyone could be against the popular vote in a country where so many of what is it, like 3 or 4 of the last 6 elections have been decided by the Electoral College when the popular vote said otherwise. So it's literally subverted democracy like over and over again. I obviously it led to Donald Trump. So, I mean, that's probably why the dude likes it, but God, it's just like, I mean, if the shoe was on the other foot, Saagar, do you really think you'd support the Electoral College? If the popular vote went to Trump and the Electoral College went to Hillary, you'd be screaming about how it was a liberal, elitist fucking mechanism to make sure that the working people of fucking North Dakota or whatever can never rise up and build their fucking border wall, or you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just it's so obvious that this is just a partisan thing, and it's disappointing from someone that does pretend to be a populist and who, for the most part, he's usually not afraid necessarily to buck party orthodoxy. He does criticize Republican leadership all the time. So it's like, is this really, like, can you not understand why this is also dumb as fuck and like needs to go and is antiquated? Like it's
anti-democratic just means of subverting democracy. Yeah,
100%. Yeah. So again, I just wanted to spotlight that a little bit so that you guys could also, see the idiocy and see that. And also, because again, it is cool to see when Crystal and Saagar do actually debate a little bit, get into it, because I do like seeing a good old exchange of ideas. Never gets old to see. But do you have anything else to say on that matter before we move on to our special guest, Zach?
No, yeah, everybody. So I did notice that we did have a question about it. Yeah, so SLV Revolutions asked if we take call-ins. Yeah, we have a Patreon. We have a Patreon, and so one of the perks for supporting us on Patreon is that you can call into our live streams and chat about issues that you're into. So if anybody's listening is curious about that, you can find the link in our Patreon below. Also, you can just ask us questions in the chat and that's like obviously completely free. No Patreon support required there. But yeah, we have a super important, I guess, first time ever getting a Patreon on our live stream. So, wave your flag. This is a little bit of Vanguard history.
Yeah, and without further ado, we'll welcome to the stream. Please correct me if I mispronounce, but Gurpratap Singh?
That was a really good job. Yes, perfect. Gurpratap Singh with a little bit of that rolling, but overall you did great there, Gavin. Zach, you both are just
I'm Zach.
really
how's it
smart guys. Well, you guys are really, really smart. I follow both of you, and I'm 38, so I really admire the younger youth moving into the positions that you are and voicing your videos out there and just being the driving force. Because I love that, man. There's no other contrast out there. When you turn on Fox, when you turn on any of the other newscasts, you only get red or blue. And I'd like to see some out of the box thinking, because for me, it almost feels like the same driver jumps into the car, and then 8 years later, you'll see them all in photo ops and family gatherings. And I'm not here to pick on either one of the candidates or any of the politicians. I mean, any of the political sides. I'm here to figure out solutions for people. I believe that's what we need. We don't need, any of these politicians. And what they do is they really are the ones that are dividing the people. And I'm going to say this, guys. I am a veteran. I did serve in Iraq. I was in an invasion. And when we got there, it was ironic. I was with 173rd Airborne Brigade. And we took over the city of Kirkuk. And it was ironic when I got there. It was right. It was chaos. When you look around at our liberties here, and I totally want more of that to be increased into the rest of the world. But it was saddening. But at the same time, I got such a good reflection of the American life, of our freedoms here, but also the lack of our capabilities. What are we doing over here? Why are we living so little in comparison to what even Saddam could have achieved? When we took over, what we did was we had took over a safe house, for example, and we did pretty much a police force the entire time I was in the airborne infantry, and it was an interesting time. I won't go into the details of what I did or what took place, but I will say that a lot of veterans have suffered coming back, a lot of issues that we go through in our own battles, and a lot of them get the entire process of what the behind the veils. There's a lot of veterans that understand the political game, and they're done with it. So I love that. That's an awakening, and I wanted to share a few things with you all. I think whenever there is somebody out here getting suppressed, there is a yin and yang in life. There's a balance going on. As we did that conquering and so forth, it was terrible when it comes to. I remember the worst times for me was visiting hospitals. Visiting hospitals, seeing those individuals that were bombed by accident and so forth, just sharing me with their stories. So there's a very humane side to veterans too. And as far as myself, I can speak for myself. I can speak for my friends. But I do want to expand on our economic side, because I see, I was thinking of this the other day, and I want you all to think of this. If they could pass $3.2 trillion and give each person $1,200, which equates to $290 billion, I started to do the math, which is kind of weird, but I started to just think about what would it take to give each person a certain amount of money to free up their energy. Because the number one thing that, if we look back in history, and everybody should maybe study some of this, my favorite person is Nikolai Tesla. Nikolai Tesla used to be such a smart man that he actually tore up the agreement he had with I believe it was I can't think of David Morgan or so he tore up the person that had a deal with him, and he just moved on, and that was probably a terrible mistake, because later on that was the reason why his towers couldn't be built, which his dream from his towers was to expand free energy to everyone, airplanes, whatever the technology that he was possibly able to develop. And then when you look at that, when you start to see behind the history books how somebody that smart with that much development, I'll just tell you, AC/DC current, if he is the one that could change the entire way of America, and we can forget that, that is powerful, that somebody was able to do that to him. What I hate is how we could do that to certain, great individuals. We got, thank God for Oprah finally getting out this, her name was Henrietta, I believe it was Henrietta something, but there's phenomenons in science that we're not able to, discuss or share, or it's not being shared. She had the only person that was ever identified in history to have her blood cells would never die. So our blood cells live a certain amount of days, like 28 days.
Henrietta Lacks, right?
Henrietta Lacks, yes. So I just, I'm jumping from my good idea, but what I'm saying is there's a lot of things that we're being suppressed for knowledge. And then on top of that, what we don't realize is corporations are the ones setting up the laws. And then what they do is they're not allowing anybody else to get those opportunities due to those laws. So I know a lot of gas stations, for example, have shut down or have to sell out to bigger corporations, forcing them to sign contracts to, convert. They're not able to control their own money. They're not able to control their own profits. So if you say, small businesses are going to work, take those into consideration when we do have these additional regulations. And when I say additional regulations, I mean, we need people that are elected to select for the people, not for the lobbyists. Lobbyists, Newt Gingrich did a terrible, terrible act in 1994. If you just look it up, he ended up passing, basically each lobbyist is you're supposed to get money, and then that's going to give you more voice in your own party. And that's terrible. I mean, how do we function like this? That means the NRA, if they can get enough people to give them enough funds by donating, they'll take that over to the lobbyists and fight for your rights. Now you have different levels of priority that way.
Well, that's the same on both sides of the aisle, actually. I think one of the more interesting things that AOC was able to reveal, at least in a lot of younger people's eyes, was just the fact that committee assignments come with a dollar amount next to them that say this is how much money you have to raise if you're going to be considered for this position. You want to be considered for head of Ways and Means Committee, you got to raise this much money. You want to be head of this Senate Committee on transportation, you got to raise this much money. It's less and so the entire economy or not just the economy, but the entire political economy of the House and Congress and is all wrapped up in that. Yep.
You're right. So I think there's some solutions. If you studies, I've tried to get myself into more knowledge of what solutions would be possible, and I totally love what you guys are thinking of. And I'm trying to get away from gold standard kind of thinking. I'm trying to break away from what used to be that way of thinking, because at the end of the day, there's a total. I mean, we got to start doing some math, and I've done some research on this. I don't know if you all would be able to verify, and everybody else just verify for yourself, because this is just based off the top of my head. But $19 trillion worth of gold, if it's around the current market, is in the entire world. The entire, when it comes to how much monetary, we don't really have an understanding of what we're talking about when it comes to the total wealth and what is wealth. People just
Well, the United States since 1971 has been running on the petrodollar, right? Since Richard Nixon in 1971, he took us off the gold standard, and ever since then, it's kind of become a little bit wonky. Typically, the technocrats on the top of the food chain right now, it seems like has been we've been debt financing, right? So we've been employing modern monetary theory, which a lot of people on the left actually talk about as a means of uplifting the people. What we've used instead is as a means of like affording 800 military bases and debt financing essentially the lifestyles of the financial class in America.
No, absolutely. You're right. When you start making the incentives for the wrong things, people will follow that. And that's what kind of everything, including our housing market crash, they made it possible just to let you. I remember coming back from the military, and then suddenly I was asked to just give up my information and do this house purchase. And I said, no, this sounds really ridiculous. My dad taught me never to give my social security number away to anybody. So I passed on that, but luckily, I just want to have one quote and just also expand on this. This is by Milton Friedman. So I like Milton Friedman. I believe he had good intention, and I believe people.
Well, I would disagree with that, but
I know you would. Which is why I first cautioned by first letting you know who I'm going to be talking about, and then because I've been thinking more and more of, and I also like. Don't get me wrong. I also like. Let me just get this real quick. Keynesian theories as well.
John Keynes.
Yes, John Keynes. I was reading up on Keynesian his theories as well. So don't get me wrong. I think everybody should learn from each other. And by the way, I believe one of the best things that colleges could do is have more group discussions. Have a topic, have a form of group discussions, and communities have more discussions. Now that we're able to go live, why not have a 300 town hall meeting within your town members? Because believe it or not, I believe communities are the only way that we're going to solve it, locally level, because you can't expect that from that level. The biggest problem, when it comes down to top down, is that we started this in, back in when the first law that passed, allowing Social Security number to be, allowing basically a corporation to have a Social Security number, which allows basically a soulless entity or a person to take control, and then a board CEO has to answer to a board. So CEO answers to the board, and the name of, let's say, Apple or any other corporation, that's a heartless corporation. If I tell you, Gavin, hey man, I'm hearing all of these complaints on TV. I'm also hearing my own family members telling me they're getting all of these problems within the community, poverty, and believe it or not, we're making all the money because we're getting this, iPhone made for $100, and then we're selling it for $1,000. And I do feel like that's kind of, cutting it on the decisive, on the, I'm sorry, there, as far as the wrong level there. So if that was the case, that would be ideal. And we need to have more. By the way, I want you guys to think about this. There is a new corporation that was passed after Ben & Jerry's was sort of jacked out of their own situation, out of their own company. So back in, I think 2008 or so, 6, they went private. I'm sorry, they went public. They were private owned, and then they sold to their own employees, and their own employees were basically a European country heard about it. They came in, bought out all the majority of the shares out of the Ben & Jerry's, and then basically ended up taking control of the ownership of the company. So like when you start to think of these things happening, why is it that we don't get and if you notice, why is it that we don't get a share of those profits for just a purchase? So if you're a citizen, maybe you should be able to be getting a certain amount of percentage as you grow within those corporations that, they feed an individual instead of just our systems.
Are you kind of talking about value? Are you talking about like a value-added tax or something like that?
Yeah, a value-added tax.
Well, that would
but-
be for a consumer method. I'm trying to understand. Are you talking about like people who work for in a company getting ownership of that company as they work there?
Well, that would be, yes, but that would be more what I'm talking about. You're right, Zach. And I was trying to say getting away from the basically by let's say like we keep on being held at gunpoint whenever something happens, because investments are in what? Retirements, right? So let's say you work in government and your retirements are all tied in. So suddenly they're basically trying to threaten you that, hey, you're going to lose from your $250 to $1 million retirement plan. Now it's going to go down to maybe 10% of that. Now it's going to be 10% value left. If you let this keep going, 29,000 was the stock, let's say. It went all the way to what, 18,000, which would be alarming. 40% gone within days of working 40 years, right? So here you go with this gun to your head. You better allow me to pass the stimulus. So we gotta start separating those things as well. I believe, and if you would do something like that, you would have, let's say, the people that are doing short-term investments, they would be taxed on and people that are in the government investing, working, would actually have a more safety to their own investments. So instead of just getting an email every year telling you, hey, this is at your own risk, you have all of these, shares in your own 401k. What I'm saying is just, we got to find those ways that they're attacking our own people. These are also the issues that I have been thinking about, because that's how they actually, because those are the people that are going to, say, you know what, I don't want to do any of this. I'm going to threat to quit, or we're going to strike. All of the trucks are going to strike. All of this is going to happen. All of that's going to happen. Then suddenly everybody calms down because they don't want to. It's all about if you can put in front of government how many jobs you can create, by doing a certain action, they'll take more action on it. So they think of, I forget the reference that I wanted to use for that.
Yeah, good, Pratap. I think that's a really great point that you're raising here, and one that we've really have kind of been pushing on the vanguard, that the workers really do need to kind of work together, obviously, right? And we need to sow this kind of conversation about really building grassroots organizations so that we can collectively pull the workers' weight together and be able to have these sustained action. Like you mentioned, we really appreciate you taking the time to jump on the stream tonight. Did you have any?
I don't mean to cut you off, Zach. The only quote that I did want to say, and I'm excited because I'm a little nervous. It's the first time I've been on
no problem.
Somebody, but the quote, and I kind of thought of you about this, so to be gentle to you about it, So it says here by Milton Friedman, it's nice to elect the right people, but that's not the way you solve things. The way you solve things is by making it politically profitable for the wrong people to do the right things.
Yeah, I do think there's some legitimacy to that. And I mean, I think that you have to come at it from a bit of a mix of those two strategies. But I certainly think there's some legitimacy to that. And I do think that a lot of politics, methods of getting what your opposition or what you want from your opposition, I think that methods like that are kind of underrated. So I think that that's interesting, to think about for sure. And again, we do appreciate, I guess the pushback onto our own thinking. And we always appreciate a good, difference of opinion. So, I really appreciate that. And again, thanks so much for the support and, for joining us in conversation tonight. We look forward to hopefully.
We look forward to our next chat.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yeah, no Thanks so much.
Okay.
Bye.
Anyway, that was one of our patrons, like we said. So again,
our very first patron live stream. So super big shout out.
Yeah, that was fun. We enjoyed speaking with you. Guitarpa, and we hope that hopefully some other people join in and can come on to talk with us too, And again, we don't have any problem hearing out people with differing opinions or different approaches, maybe rooted in a slightly different ethos or philosophy than we are. So we appreciate a good exchange of ideas. And again, thank you, Gupartap. I apologize if I fucked up your name. But yeah,
one quick thing that I did want to get to for SLV Revolutions. He asked us 3 quick questions. I think he's new to the channel, so I just wanted to give him a quick shout out and drop those answers for him. So Gavin and I's current House representative is Emmanuel Cleaver. And then as for me, my top 3 issues right now.
We're in Kansas City, by the way, in case you're new to the show. We're in Kansas City, so Emmanuel Cleaver is our congressperson. Yeah.
Yeah. For 2, our top issues, obviously, Gavin and I, we've talked a lot about healthcare, obviously criminal justice reform. But if it looks like your question's actually to take full advantage of the COVID-19 crisis, I mean, fuck, right? We need Medicare for all. We need stimulus checks, and we need a rent moratorium. We need an eviction moratorium, and we need to cancel rent. And we need a massive cut to consumer debt. Those would be things that are on the top of my list.
I would say COVID is pretty unique. I think universal basic income is the obvious one. I think that healthcare for all is also a very obvious one. But I think that, an issue that has just become so increasingly obvious under these times and, that just has to be addressed. Like, just it cannot continue to go unaddressed, which is just the houselessness crisis and the fact that there's no guarantee of housing for all in this country, which is just so insane to think about. It's like, it's literal state-sponsored violence, especially during the winter, especially if you live in a really cold place. You can't live out fucking side when it's snowing. Like, that's insane. And especially during the pandemic when people have COVID and could infect other people. Like, it's the most obvious thing ever. We need to give everyone a place to live and the ability to participate in society in a real way. And of course, obviously, homelessness, people turn to crimes of desperation. It's the most obvious thing ever. When you deprive people of resources, they're gonna end up committing crimes to live. It's the most obvious shit ever. So yeah, I think that healthcare, income, and housing are the 3 rights that I think are essential. And again, income, just because I feel like without income, you can't guarantee a lot of those rights. You can guarantee. I mean, I'd rather have income, for example, than the government send me a box of fucking food in the mail every month, right? I'd rather get to decide what food I want to eat than get a basket full of porridge or whatever.
Who was it we were talking to the other day that was talking about how old people were getting like granola bars sent to them and shit like that? Like, can't even eat. I think that was Mumita running for city council in New York. So yeah, definitely sign off on all of that. And then it looks like the last question was just, did we have a take on this? Oh yeah, we have multiple takes on this, and you can check them out on our channel. We put out a video. Our highest grossing video of all time was actually weighing in on this beef. Gavin and I just chimed in and went up to almost 10K, which is a win for the Vanguard. We're not the biggest channel. Yeah, that was really exciting for us.
And also, if you want to hear even more extended conversation on this subject, we did a pretty good video where we kind of went through and roasted Vosh's take on the subject.
Vosh had a dog shit take on this. Yeah, we fucking scorned him.
And some people in the comments even that said they were fans of Vosh even agreed with us that, it was a bullshit take and that they were also off put by it. So if you really want to hear us like get into the weeds with someone else, obviously we didn't talk to him in person, but we engaged with his opinions via his video. And I think that's a pretty good exchange of ideas too. If you really want to see us not only, break down some of the arguments against it, but also defend the position for it pretty ravenously.
Yeah, Gavin and I 100% support the desperate need. So Gavin and I, like I said, and we've talked about this on. Gavin and I aren't personality guys. We don't give a fuck about. I don't care if you like Jimmy Dore. I don't think if you think Jimmy Dore is a piece of shit. I don't give a fuck. His idea was damn good, and we need a floor vote on Medicare for all yesterday. So. That's my take. And I do think it's fucked if he edited that David Sirota video incorrectly, though. That's my one take. That's journalistic malpractice, and I think that's unethical. I haven't done enough homework to verify 100% what's going on in that, but I will, and I will report back.
Yeah. And that's why we always say whenever we talk about Jimmy Dore is that we always have to add the caveat that we don't stand by everything he's ever said, and that sometimes he does stupid fucking things. And yeah, if he edited the clip of Sirota talking, then that's just dumb and petty. And it's also not, it just makes you look worse, and it drags down this position with you. So I don't understand why he would do that. And that's super petty if it's true. So again, don't stand by everything he said. But again, personalities aside, it's just the obvious position what Jimmy's advocating for. It's the obvious, position for don't vote for Nancy Pelosi in order to hopefully get something, or if you're going to have to vote for Nancy Pelosi, at least get something out of it. I think that's obvious. And as I think you mentioned at another point, I don't see the comment right now, but you mentioned that I believe Cornel West is now signing off on this idea. I think he was actually live with Jimmy Dore tonight, so I guess he's signaled his support for
as
this
AOC
idea.
says, no activists I don't think Sirota is jealous of him at all. David Sirota has an amazing career at the Daily Poster. He's written some amazing books. He's been campaigning for Medicare for all since he was calling it Medicare for everybody way before Bernie. I mean, David Sirota is real top notch. And that's why I'm skeptical of what happened with that, because I read his article and he was advocating for what Jimmy was advocating for in addition to a bunch of other things. So I'm skeptical, but yeah, I have to do more homework on that for sure.
I will say Bernie Sanders has always been advocating for healthcare for all, but that aside, David Sirota is,
I meant before Bernie Sanders campaign when I said that, not before Bernie Sanders existed. That's a good correction.
Because Bernie has always been on the universal healthcare train. But yeah, I would say that SLV revolution, maybe you have a difference of opinion on Sirota, but I agree with Zac that he's a great journalist. He's in the Daily Poster is just such a great outlet for reporting, especially, exposing corporations and stuff. So I think that, Sirota is definitely a voice here that I would not discredit. And I don't think he's jealous of him either. So I don't necessarily agree with that. But I also, again, I think it's stupid that people aren't just acknowledging that, Jimmy Dore's idea here is correct. Someone, or Taylor here, comments that Tim Black also came out. I haven't really been keeping up with the Tim Black bit. I think he might have also said that this maybe wasn't a smart idea. And
if he did, I disagree with Tim Black too, bro.
It seems like, see here, SLV says Lee Camp, Kalinsky, Jink. It's funny how I guess we're dividing into teams now. Like I'm on the team Lee Camp, Kalinsky, Jink, Medhurst, Crystal Ball, All Pro Jimmy Dore, like that.
Like I said, I don't give a fuck about personalities, but Jimmy's right on this. So I mean, the position is that we need that. Like, I don't care who's like talking about it as much as I care about the fact that we desperately need a floor vote on Medicare for all right fucking now. That's what matters. And I'm irritated at anything that divides that, which is like the whole left right now. So
Yeah, 100%. And again, for me, it's just, the obvious decision. It looks like Tim Black might have changed his mind. So that's good. I feel like everyone would agree on this if it wasn't Jimmy Dore suggesting it. Jimmy Dore is just so fucking divisive, and he's clearly pissed off a lot of people, especially from TYT. So they have that like the TYT army. Yeah. So he has all these people that just have like personal beef with him because he like called them a sellout to their face probably one time, and they were like got really offended by it or something. But again, I wasn't there, so maybe he, told Anna Kasparian to like go fuck herself or something horrible, and she was like never gonna forgive him. I don't know what the issue is, but clearly there's
But either way, who cares, right? It's just like fucking drama anyway. It's like
but if you guys do like drama, there are more videos on that.
Exactly. We weigh into drama all the time.
Yeah. So, we acknowledge that it's not necessarily the most productive thing, this infighting, but we do comment on it. So, make sure to subscribe.
Feel free to hear our take. Yeah. But anyway, thanks for everybody for tuning in, and be sure to hit the subscribe button. You'll be hearing from us in the next couple of days, I'm sure.
Yeah. Everyone, peace out. Thanks so much.